How are you?
Nick, good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
Last year was complicated.
There it is.
Congratulations on making it through that and giving us this record.
Thank you.
Solo album number 3, album number 2 in what I've heard you call the relaunch of Nick. I feel a little bit like you make things a little complicated for me, because I remember we talked on album 1. I talked to you for Billboard.
Yeah.
And those pictures from Flaunt magazine had just come out. And I tried to get you to take off your shirt by threatening to take off mine, which no one wanted. And now we're talking a few days after I saw you on the Fallon show.
Yeah.
And I learned a new word.
Oh, yeah. That word.
That word.
Narb.
Narb. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that again?
Well, you know, I can't believe I told this story on TV.
I can't believe it either, Nick, because then I get you after these things happen,
Yeah.
and I'm supposed to have a serious conversation about
It's
music.
kind of funny. You know, the music is so serious at times that I feel like I've had this mentality change where I might as well just give people a better look at my personality as I am with my friends.
Right.
And kind of, you know, it's not all heavy, because I think the music could make you think it is. But yeah, I told the story about, you know, walking onto a red carpet, actually about wearing a similar outfit to this.
A red suit.
No correlation, though, to the edible that was in my system at the time. But I got a NARB, which is a no apparent reason boner.
Right. And then you had to be on the red carpet, and then you had to go on the.
Someone come. I was trying to cover the whole thing. You know, the whole thing. Never mind.
Okay, let's move on.
Good morning.
So let's talk about this record.
Yep.
You know, obviously a breakup record. You not all the songs address that. Some of them address being single after a breakup. But you've talked a bit about some of the songs, including Champagne Problems. I know that you said you wrote just a day or two after you split with your ex.
Yeah, it was literally the next day, I think. You know, we had this bottle of champagne we were saving for our anniversary, and it was in about 2 weeks. We didn't quite make it there. But, you know, in a kind of strange ending to the whole thing, we said, why not still share this toast to the time we had together? And it was actually very nice. Oh, whose phone's ringing?
Somebody's very popular. All right, let's move on.
But basically, you know, I went to Mammoth with some friends and collaborators the next day, wrote this song. And I think the thing that I like the most about it is the fact that it is a breakup song, and it is about you know, something pretty sad. But worked with Jason Evigan, who did Chains on the last record, and we put kind of an up-tempo beat to it, something that feels a bit like a party song, even though it's about, you know, something quite sad.
Right, and another one of the standouts for me was Chainsaw, which is very specific. You've said it's a good song. You know, you're talking in that song about wanting to take a chainsaw to a couch that you spent time on with somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was within the same trip, or maybe just a week after I went back to Mammoth. A lot of the record was recorded there, which was great for me to be able to just get up there and get out of LA and create. But you know, walking around the house that I spent a lot of time with my ex, and feeling like, you know, feeling like I wanted to go and just destroy the whole thing as a way of letting go. And what was really interesting to me was that it was so specific to my experience. And this is, I think, the beauty of songwriting is that we have the ability to tell our stories, and it means something to us. But then you open it up to other people and their experience and how it affects their lives. And a friend of mine and her husband were listening to it, and you know, this is one of my parents' closest friends, her parents, and unfortunately, a number of years ago, her mother passed, and it was very sad. But her husband said, you know, this song, Chainsaw, makes me think of your dad, and you know, and how he's had to live in this house that he lived in with his wife, who he loved and who he lost. So a totally different angle on it, and so I'm hoping that Chainsaw is the kind of song that can help people through whatever it is in their life that they need to let go of. And you know, it's been helpful to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very different kind of loss, obviously, but the same idea of being in a space you shared with someone that you felt very strongly about. And I wanted to ask you about that, whether these songs that are very specific and come from a very specific moment for you, they do have a simple, universal way of relating to the audience. Anybody who's been through a breakup or wanted to have bacon after a hookup,
Yeah.
Can relate to these songs. You really seem to like bacon, dude.
I love bacon. I could go for some bacon right now. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, it's so funny. I put the titles out on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
There was a whole release plan for the whole thing, and I kind of said, "Can I curse on this or no?"
Oh yeah, you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure
Fuck
before
you.
I say something. Okay, just make sure. I was kind of like, "Fuck it," and I just put them out. So it was when Bacon, the title, showed up. I literally got, I think it was like 5 or 6 pounds of bacon from Oscar Mayer in the mail, along with this thing. This is a real thing. There's an app, right? So you get the app, and it's an alarm, but it coincides with a little attachment you put on your phone. So in the morning when you wake up, your alarm goes off, and it releases a bacon scent. So it's like a bacon vaporizer,
Wow, bacon vaping.
Yeah, bacon vaping.
Bacon vaping.
We should create
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah, let's talk after. I'll do the work. You do the promotion, and you can have all the just 10% for me. Now listen. But that idea that these are specific things for you, but universal for the listener, is that something you thought about going into this?
Definitely. I mean, the biggest lesson I learned as a songwriter in now, an 11, 12-year career, is that you have to write about things that are real to you and relevant to you. And it doesn't always have to be emotional and heavy. It can be just about, whatever it is, but it has to connect. But it can't be hyper-specific, or else it's going to alienate some people. So I've tried to adopt kind of a balance of professional songwriting awareness of the world and it being broad enough to make sense. People like Drake and Taylor do that very well, where they're able to, kind of create something that means something to them, but also everyone here would love to listen to and connect with in their own way.
You just mentioned an 11 or 12-year career as a songwriter, but your career goes back even further than that. You started on Broadway at age 7, is that right?
The first show that I got was A Christmas Carol. I booked it at 7, and I started when I was 8. And I remember I had the final callback for A Christmas Carol on my birthday, and I was devastated. And I would look back at myself now and be like, "You punk."
You were
Suck it
devastated
up.
that you had to go work on your birthday, or try to work?
I don't know. I had it in my mind that birthdays were very important or something, and they're not. Kid, listen, kid. No, I mean they are. At 7, it's very important. But the last audition was on my birthday. I got it, and it was the best gift I could have asked for.
Sure.
But as an 8-year-old kid, I think I was a little disappointed that I had to go do that.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me. You're the age when most people are getting out of college and looking for a first job.
Yeah.
And often moving back with their parents for a little while.
Wouldn't that be something?
Would be interesting. That would be. It would not require a full turn up. That would be.
No full turn up.
But you've been doing this for well over a decade. And do you think at all about what's next? Do you stop
Definitely.
and think what would I do if I didn't do this?
Yeah, I think acting has become a major priority for me. The music is kind of always number one because it's just within me and I love it and it's a passion. But the acting is something that challenges me and I've been really fortunate to find some great projects. Between Goat and Kingdom and other things coming up I'm really excited about. So I think along with that comes a real desire for me to want to direct. I have an eye for it. I've worked with some great directors that I feel like I kind of speak that language and can do that. So a few stories that I want to write and hopefully direct myself. And then in addition to that, I'd love to return to Broadway at some point in time with a show that I write myself.
Wow.
So hopefully that happens. And then, I think it's an interesting time in music as a whole where you have to be progressive. This is a crazy thing to say, but I'm going to say it. And that is that right now, I think the model of the album is kind of done, right? And this may be one of the last traditional album releases I do, maybe the last, because I think I need to shift towards where the world is going, which is streaming and finding new and creative ways to release music. Beyonce, for instance, with Lemonade and what she did and what she accomplished. You can make so much more bold statements as an artist if you are progressive. And so the long-winded answer to your question is that I'm hoping that I just evolve in a way with the next thing that pushes things even further and makes people think, wow, it's really creative, and he must have put a lot of thought into that.
Well, let's stick with that album idea just for a second for two reasons. And one is this is a coherent album. It's got a theme that it revolves around. Young man loses lady, young man gains ladies.
That description is unbelievably amazing.
Well, I listened to it.
That's so great. It's so funny.
And you also mentioned Beyonce's Lemonade, which is a very different kind of album release, and as a visual album was such an amazing accomplishment because it stood as a visual project outside of the music on its own entirely. But again, a very coherent album. So are you thinking of different ways of approaching the album, or just different ways of releasing music, like a song or an EP at a time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of a few things. So I think the visual release component to Lemonade is one of the reasons it was so compelling, and obviously her personal connection to it and the interest there. But even, again, Drake referencing that, but, putting out just a bunch of songs from Views before it came out kept me as a fan and as an audience member so engaged for so many months leading up to the release. So I think that albums still exist, and it's an important statement as an artist, but it may be about how you release them. And what the next thing is. I think whether it's an app that is owned by the artist and is a sort of a new way of looking at things, whatever it is, I think you just have to be progressive in some way.
Bacon Vapin' will come with songs.
You bacon vaping. I love that.
Meanwhile, we're talking about new ways of doing things, but you're really going old school today. How are you going out there and selling this record?
Oh yeah, I think I just put it out on Twitter. I'm about to, but I basically had this thought with my team. It's album release week, so you kind of want to do everything you can to make people aware of the release. And I was driving around the other day when the record came out in this old school car, convertible, really cool, around the city, just hanging and telling people, hey, if you're out and about, come and say hi. And we said, why don't we fill the trunk with CDs and go sell them on the street? So I will be, at some point today, riding around the city with an old school car with CDs in the trunk. And if you want to come hang and buy a CD from me, I'd love to sell it to you. I told you this backstage, so sorry for sounding repetitive here. But I tried to get the most interesting man in the world to come and join me, because I just wanted that picture, the picture of me in this red getup that I decided to wear, with the most interesting man in the world next to me selling CDs. But it didn't come together because he apparently has a very high day rate.
Wow. He is,
he's done very well for himself.
Yeah, he is, after all, the most interesting man in the world.
True.
You got to pay for that. That is old school. I believe that's the way Russell Simmons used to sell the first Run DMC singles, out of the trunk of the car.
You got to push those mixtapes.
Yeah, exactly.
Bro, check out my CD.
It would be a unique experience, not for some people, not just to buy a CD, but to buy it from the artist himself.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What I'm hoping is that people don't know it's me. Some people don't know it's me, and they think I'm just a really good impersonator.
Okay.
Or a really bad impersonator.
Right. That would also be probably a decent day rate, not the most interesting man in the world.
Not the most interesting man in the world. No.
I want to switch it up a little and talk about something serious, which is your appearance at the rally at Stonewall earlier this week in memoriam of the shooting victims in Orlando at Pulse. First, tell me how you came to be there, and tell me why it was important to you to be there.
I think, like everybody else, I woke up to the news and was devastated for the victims and their families, and just as an American, it's really heartbreaking and horrible. So I looked at my team and just said, I'm in the city. I know the vigil's happening. If there's anything I can do, I'd love to be a part of it in some way. They said, we'll reach out to the governor's office and see. And he asked me to come and speak. So I got up, and without preparing any words, I just spoke from the heart and talked about my upbringing and my father, who is an amazing man and shaped my view of love and what love is and acceptance and how to be, And it was incredible to look out and see the faces of all these people in an incredibly important place as well, where a lot has happened and a lot of brave men and women have stood and made a stand. Because what you felt was heartbreak for Orlando as a whole, and I think real care for wanting to see change and needing to see change as a country, but also anger, which was really tough. You saw a lot of anger, and this was a true act of hatred, and just the whole thing was just so horrible, and you could feel it in that space, and it was just interesting, and I think what I took away from it was just that this city specifically is so strong, and this country is so strong. When these things happen, I think the beauty is that we can band together and really support and do what we can to see a positive change.
You talked a little bit about your father's upbringing. I know that on the last two records, you've been very clear about having a connection to the gay music community, to your gay fans. But you also, you grew up around, you worked on Broadway growing up, you grew up around that theater community, and you were involved from an early age with things like actor equity fights, AIDS. One of your early songs was on one of those records. Is this a longer standing connection perhaps than some people realize?
It is, yeah. I was in theater as a kid and made some of my closest friends who were gay. It was not any different to me, and I didn't see it any differently. And so I think it really shaped kind of my view stepping forward. So when I became a solo artist and really established kind of who I am, what's important to me, supporting the LGBT community was a big piece of that, as they've been so supportive of me. Also on Kingdom, playing a gay fighter and going through that journey with the character. It's really humbling and an opportunity to just support an incredibly amazing community that I think I've made some of my closest friends in.
You mentioned Kingdom. You've shot seasons 2 and 3 already. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, thanks. I guess they call it season 2A and season 2B.
Oh, okay.
But it is, I think, technically it's third season. It's airing right now. There's more posters in the city than I've ever seen for the show, which is cool. A big one of the guy that plays my brother, Jonathan Tucker, who, by the way, is a credited songwriter on the album as well, and a director for the documentary series I did for the record. Okay. So he and I become very close, and the show is very important to me, and great to see that it's kind of picking up steam a little bit, and people are enjoying it.
And I tried to see a trailer for Goat. I was looking around for some information about it, but I don't know much about this movie. Tell me a little about it and how you came to be involved.
I came to be involved because the script just kind of showed up on my doorstep from my agent, and he said, this has been floating around. This project's been around for a long time. Read it and let me know what you think. And initially I think Emil Hirsch and someone else were attached, and then it became kind of Dave Franco and someone. There was a bunch of variations of the casting, which is how James Franco came to be a producer on the film. so it showed up my doorstep, and they said Ben Schnetzer is attached, and I had just watched him in The Book Thief, which I thought he was so good in. And I fell in love with the story, got to know the real story, Brad Land's memoir, GOAT. And I met with the director, Andrew Neal, here in New York City, and just kind of talked about how he was going to shoot it, because it's so intense.
And fill us in, what's the story here?
The story is basically Brad Land, who is the main character, gets assaulted early on in the story and then has to reclaim his masculinity. And his way of going about doing that is by pledging his brother's fraternity. And things turn very bad, and it's a really intense film in that it doesn't pull any punches. It really shows you kind of, I think, one of the closest behind closed doors looks at hazing culture and what that looks like. And also just a really good commentary on masculinity as a whole and what that looks like in 2016. And it was well received at Sundance and Berlin Film Festival, and has been a great thing.
We've got time for some questions from the audience.
We're going to start with a question from an online viewer.
Okay.
So Lexi says, is it easier or harder to promote an album that is so personal to you?
I don't know if it's any less difficult because it's personal or not. I think the thing for me is that writing it helps me get over it in a lot of ways, and I'm not reliving it every time I talk about it or sing it. So I think that it's kind of therapy in the sense that I can just write it,
Relive at that moment when you write the song, and then you've released something.
Yeah, and you can work through it in some way. It doesn't mean that it's not difficult to have to speak about some of these things and be asked somewhat personal questions. But more than anything, the thing I think about is, now the people that these songs are about, what they think, and how they're affected by it. Because I never write with the intention of hurting anybody. It's just the stories as they happened, and hopefully there's no bad feelings.
I saw a very supportive tweet from someone you used to be involved with on the Twitter.
Who was that? Was there one?
Okay. Yeah.
So you're going on tour with Demi really soon, which I'm really excited about. So I was wondering if you could go on tour with any other artist, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Well, I'd want it to be a good tour for the fans. So maybe it's probably less what I would want and more like what I think would be a good matchup. So I would say someone that I think would be fun to... I've always thought it'd be fun to tour with a country artist.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love Casey Musgraves. And I think Hunter Hayes and I would have a good tour together. So that should happen at some point. This would be a good way to gauge who I should go on tour with. I should just throw out a bunch of names and you guys should respond. Good question, thanks.
Hi, Nick.
Hi.
What was your favorite song out of all the songs you made?
Very good question. My favorite song, I think Bacon is probably my favorite song at the moment.
Now that you've had a very successful solo career, what is something you wish your younger self in the Jonas Brothers had known starting off?
That it was all going to be okay. It all was going to work out. There have been a lot of moments where I've said, man, if my 13-year-old self could see me now, he'd be really happy. I think because, not because of success or because of anything going particularly well, but because the same people that were in my life then are in my life now, and I have beautiful relationships with all of them, and I'm really grateful for my friends and my happiness.
I'm not sure everybody knows that, but your manager, Phil McIntyre, has been with you. I mean, he more or less discovered the three of you very early on, and he's stuck with you through the entire career. You've stuck with him as well. And these records are coming out through Island. They reunite you with David Massey at Island, who signed you first to your deal at Sony.
We were at dinner last night, me and David and Phil, and we were talking about that, basically walking into his office at 10 years old, and then the journey with the brothers, which ended with him, and I think when I was 14, and we went to Hollywood for a few years. But to be back with David Massey, and it all coming full circle is really pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, to still be working with people you were working with at 10, 11 years old, that's
rare.
amazing. Yes, right here.
Hello.
Nick. So you've kind of put yourself into many different mediums of entertainment, whether it's TV, Broadway, music. So how does your preparation change with different projects and different mediums?
Well, great question, by the way. I think, when it comes to the acting side of things, I try to really let go of any Nick Jonas in there, because I want it to feel like whoever the person is I'm portraying. And there are times that, they help each other out, that I open up more in a scene, and then in turn I'm able to open up more when I'm shooting a music video. Or, I think the Chainsaw music video is probably a direct, a direct take from the acting, in the sense that I was able to really show the emotion of it because I've now been trained to how to do a scene and all that. And so it's just about letting go of that when I go into the acting side. And then on the music front, I think it's about having fun. When I'm more free, I think the audience enjoys it more. I think it connects more. It's kind of when I get locked up and in my head about stuff that it doesn't really go that well.
Got time for one more question.
Hi, I skipped work for
Hey,
this.
nice. I hope you don't get fired.
Whatever. When your song comes on the radio, when any of your songs do you ever sing to them, or you just change the station?
I do two things. There's one version where I sing to it when I'm with friends and I'm hanging out. It's really exciting. The other version is I just sit on my phone like, oh, it's my song on the radio. It's cool. It's like you got to have both. Play it cool and the full-on turn up.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, good
And
question.
on that note, we're going to leave it there. Nick, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.